Dr. Jazz.
Yeah, so thanks for taking the time, Harold. I appreciate it. You know.
Thank you. Yeah.
Been doing this. You've been doing this for a really long time, so you know.
Boy, yeah. You talk about more than a half a century, you know. So.
Yeah.
So.
But you're as fresh as ever. I listened to the new one, Spring Garden, and it's, man, it's incredible. It's.
I'm still learning. I don't know. Did you get it online? Did you get it without the liner notes? I wrote my little story.
Without the liner notes, yeah. I just listened to it.
I'll send you the liner notes because that's my little story about my obsession with this 29-year-old Russian. You know, now I'm an old guy, and the young Russian guy still kicks my ass. You know, and finding things to play. You know, the obsession with Rite of Spring.
Yeah.
I'm doing another recording for Steeplechase in December.
Oh, really?
And I'm going to call it Rite Notes, R-I-T-E, Rite Notes, because from I forget, there's 9 tunes on the Spring Garden.
Yeah.
And then I did a little thing at the Bop Shop. I did a Spring Garden suite, and then I realized I'm playing other things that aren't on the record. So I discovered there's 7 new tunes there. So, so in December, I'm going to record those like solo piano, because that's more of things I found and pretty much directly in Rite of Spring. But then I've been investigating other Stravinsky things, and Mussorgsky, things where, Stravinsky wasn't entirely original. And he made no secret about that. Yeah. And the thing is, if you search, even with the octatonic scale, the diminished scale, it's Rimsky-Korsakov and others, Mussorgsky. And so I'm justifying things. And then just last night, I found this little thing on Monk on epistrophe. I said, wow. So it's like, I feel like I'm studying with these guys. I'm studying with because each little thing enlightens, shines a light on something. It's like, oh, never thought of it quite that way. Yeah. There's like voicings in the Stravinsky, on the diminished scale. I said, I played the diminished scale for 50 years. I've never thought of that particular voicing, or something. And that's before you get to all the rhythms and stuff that are in there, which are, a highly interesting thing. But for me, there's so much going on with how he reuses motifs and harmonies, and so anyway, that's get that out of the way. So there's going to be another chapter 2, and hopefully I said in an email to Fred Hirsch, I said I hope that I get beyond 1910 and start to 1913 actually 1913 start to do some newer things, but I'm having too much fun with this. So so anyway, I'm glad it does seem fresh to me.
Yeah,
and that makes it interesting for me, and it's just not interesting for me to rehash tunes that I've played for more than 50 years, and some tunes have never gotten any better because I don't like them that much. Some sort of Broadway show tunes that I had to play as a cocktail pianist.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they sound the same way when I learned them when I was 20, because I have no interest in improving them.
Sure. No, but on this new one, I love how you do, like how everything is developed, all the tunes. And I mean, you and Rich, that's incredible. I already love what you guys did with Jeff Hirshfield and Scott Colley, those mid-90s records.
Wow, thank you. Yeah.
4 or 5 together. And you and Rich, I think when I listen to your comp also, you comp way differently behind him. Like, I don't know, using more space, I think, or something. That there's something between you two guys when he plays, and
Thank you so much. I mean, that really happened at the Vanguard when I was subbing. It happened on an F Blues, maybe early 80s. And I was like, subbing on the band now and then, trying to read very hard, broad Brookmeyer charts and falling on my face in front of the Vanguard. And then they occasionally would play a Thad tune. I go, okay, now I know this one. So we played an F blues second race or whatever, and Rich was sitting in that the first tenor chair near the piano. And I mean, I'd known Rich before that and whatever, and we played together some, but there was some connection we had on that F blues, which, like you said, the comping, it's like he'd give me something, and then there'd be like, there'd be something he played like, well, don't comp there. Okay, wait, like a little bit, and so there, Dick Oates once, when he heard in the car, he was listening to, like I did some records with Dick and Rich Perry, Oates and Perry records, which I'm really happy with, because to hear those two guys played, I've heard them since they were young guys in New York, and Dick did the most, like he heard me playing with Rich, and he heard Rich, it's like saying like, okay, don't get in my way, okay, now, like there's like kind of a thing where Rich has a direction, and if you kind of get in there with what he's doing, it's really easy. And I end up, it's almost like there's a thing with Thad Jones that was that way with comping, like kind of anything will work. And it happens a certain way with Dick Oates too, for me. And I think it goes back to Thad's influence. Thad, it was just so open, and it was tonal, it was blues, it was whatever. But like there'd be a thing, and it's like, okay, I can put anything down here, and Thad will respond.
Exactly.
So there's some of that I have with Dick, and then I played with Rich a lot more. So there's really like that sort of open. Like, where's it going to go? I don't know,
I love
so
it.
it's whether he's playing standards or whether, everyone wants to play Rich to play originals, because he's finally writing some things. Niels Winter's very happy that, Rich is writing these fragments, and then Gary Versace says, I don't know what to do with this, but you go with it, So it's very much kind of his organic way of playing, I think. If he really, starts to write down some of these things, then that's gives another way of compositionally approaching his playing.
It's I love that. Well, on this last one, I mean, already before, but on this last one also, because you use space also so beautifully in these tunes. It's like a lot of, not silence, but space. How the compositions develop. Like the first one, it begins like with the unisono line, and then it's just like. And it's like, man, wow.
A lot of that too is like at that point, and that's in my liner notes too. It like developed out of some sketches, because the quartet had a chance to play in Argentina after many years of not playing. So we did some gigs, played all my music, and then Niels Winter wanted me to do an album of new stuff. So I'm writing. I said, okay, I'll do Rite of Spring stuff, and so we kind of had a bit of a rehearsal in Argentina, where I saw like, okay, this is not everything that I thought about, because it's the quartet, and it's just like, it's like Rich Perry. It's like I didn't tell everyone like do their homework. Everybody listen to Rite of Spring, and we're only going to play things from that. It's like when you get Rich Perry, you get Rich Perry. You don't get Rich Perry like so. And I understand, like all the guys are that way. I respect where they would go, but to give them things from basically my research, and then saying, okay, we can run with this, and of course, Rich can run with it, and so there's a lot of time. Like I noticed, like early on when I put the CD together, I said, wow, it's a lot of tenor in these opening things, and I said, why not? It's a quartet thing, it's an orchestral thing, so it was really that was like. When I realized that it was not, we weren't going to try to do like the Rite of Spring for quartet, like the Bad Plus did a trio version. And first of all, I couldn't learn that music. I mean, if I had to play that stuff, I mean, that's hard, really hard. So it is, I extract, I feel like I can extract what I can use or what the quartet can use, and that's been the idea all along. It's like, trying to find my way. And if there's a lot of space there, it might be because I can't think of anything to play.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if you know any of this, the great tenor player named Gregory Herbert, who
you did like that 1975, that record, right?
Yeah. So he was the one that actually, kind of got me on Thad Jones' band and whatever. And but we played in Woody Herman's band together. We had a group for a while, and Gregory always said, I really like the way you comp. Because a lot of these piano players, they think all these things that they've been doing and they throw them all in. You can't think of, anything. You just play what I need, but I said, it's not far from the truth. I mean, like I have a practice agenda, but I can't bring that into, like even now working on my solo thing, I've got all these things I can do in opposite directions and whatever. And I'm going to try maybe 5% of that. I don't know, because it's just not ready. And it would sound like exercises if I did it, So that's what I have to understand in the recording process. Is this going to be it's going to be there. So if it's just like, oh yeah, I see what the guy's practicing. Oh, he missed that. Here's that sequence. Oh, he played a wrong note there. So I have to cool that down and just play the music in the moment and leave some space. And it's even at my age, it's really hard because, like, hey, I practiced this. I want to see if I can get that in. Yeah. And it's really not about that. It's really about letting the music flow. Yeah. And I think that's what I've learned from the masters that I've played with, like, Chet Baker, certainly, left space and he played the next phrase the way he heard it, So,
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about Chet and all these guys, you've worked with, but, you mentioned Niels Winter. And you've done with him like what, 25 records?
Let's say 30. I don't know.
30?
Sure.
How did this story with Niels begin, actually?
Well, I was on a Lee Konitz record called No No Nonette, and a wonderful rhythm section where I got to play with Buster Williams and Billy Hart, and so that was the first time I had contact with Niels, maybe 1978.
Already? Oh wow! Okay.
And then there was nothing, for a while. And then in the early 90s, whenever it was, maybe 1989, when Rich and I had formed a group, and then we had the Jeff always played, and they said, why do you have the same guys? Because they made rehearsals, because they made themselves available. Yep. It's like, not like I wouldn't like to play with a lot of people, but Jeff Hirshfield was very much into the music, and then. Bass players are always, harder, but between Jay Anderson and Scott Colley and a couple other guys, but those guys made my demos. I did like 2 long demos, like 45 minutes with each guy.
Oh, really?
And I sent it around to all the people in the business that I knew. And I got a few kind responses that said they couldn't do it. And then some people who I've known for a long time didn't say anything. It's like one of those things where like, ooh, I'd rather take a rejection,
Exactly.
But Niels Winter got back and said, I really like this group, but I'd like to do a Rich Perry record with this group first, because Rich had done a Ron McClure record or something.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And so we ended up doing To Start Again with that quartet with Rich, and so what it became, like, Scott Colley was available for a lot, and Jay Anderson was busy with whatever. So it ended up, Scott did most of those early records with all the originals, which was really, like Scott's ascent in the New York scene in that time was amazing. And then I think, I don't know, he was playing with Herbie Hancock or something after a while, and then Jay became available. So the joke between Rich and I, it seemed like the records with Jay had standards. There'd be like Rich Perry records. The Rich Perry Quartet would have Jay Anderson, and we'd play standards. Yeah. There's a 3-record live thing from Catano, which is really nice, And then so the originals had Scott Colley. But then after a while, like, I started doing trio records. Michael Formanek became available. then it got back to Jay again, you know. So it's like Jay's been with that, you know, the concept for what, 30 years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate to say, you know, I would never say like he's my bass player or my drummer. It's like I've heard things about. I know the way when somebody says my piano player.
Yeah. No, but for Jeff, definitely it goes. You know, I think he's on so many records of you, and it's again like with Rich, you have like a thing going, you know, rhythmically, and it's amazing what he does. Also,
it's comfortable, but it's as adventurous as I might want to be, you know. And you know, really like it could be a new adventure with somebody else, which I always welcome. But you know, it's really nice to have a group with some kind of you know, history, and then you can bring that into it. However, and I think it's really unfortunately in these days of not touring and whatever, it means that you do records together. And in my case with Niels, he'd call every, you know, year or so, say, you got anything new? And I said, oh, it's the same kind of stuff. And he you know, was kind enough to document it, you know, and still is, you know. So there's very few people in that position that Niels is, you know, that he has his, he has pretty wide-ranging tastes, but he is pretty loyal to the people that want to come back and you know, offer something else, you know. So he's documented you know, a lot of players other than myself. So
yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I like that. You know, it's so rare nowadays. Yeah. Also in business, you know, to be loyal to a label first of all, and to be loyal actually to a band, you know, in a way that, you know, to play with more or less the same kind of group of people for 40, 30 years, you know, 30 years, let's say, it's rare, you know. Modern jazz quartet, okay, they played like 50 years or something, or even played for 50, but there are not so many, you know, bands or groups, whatever we want to call it, like that keep pushing it. And it's nice to see this chemistry develop through time. And, you know, it's a nice thing. It's a really nice thing, you know.
It's fun to do. And it's really great to know that I can make, you know, some calls and these guys will still respond.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very nice thing.
Yeah. Harold, I wanted to ask you, like, you mentioned Stravinsky and your obsession with him, and but who were, like, let's say mid 60s or early 60s, the first jazz guys that got you excited, like that you heard like a record and you were like, oh shit, I really want to learn the craft of this.
Well, I mean, I'd heard, you know, the stuff coming up, you know, there were I remember hearing Bud Powell, Celia, and Un Poco Loco, things like that early on, because I started seriously looking at the, you know, trying to listen to the music around 1960. Okay. And it was things like milestones, like, you know, like on Miles Davis and Kind of Blue, you know, but then, like I said, I found my way to Bud Powell, and that was pretty amazing to me. And Bill Evans, the Vanguard sessions were very influential to me, just the group thing, and Scott LaFaro's input on that, you know, really recognizing, not to pat myself on the back for something weird, but, you know, I think so many piano players of my generation got so much into Bill Evans, content, Bill Evans. And to me, that was interesting, but more interesting than that was like, what is Scott doing here? How is Scott opening that up? And, you know, Paul Motion just kind of being there. And that whole thing, when Miles's group, you know, all the Miles groups like were great, but then when the group arrived with Tony Williams and that kind of interaction, that was just another thing where that can't be duplicated. Like what Ron, you know, I had one occasion to play with Ron Carter on the Chet Baker record, and it was great. But you know, that chemistry that happened between Ron and Tony and Herbie was like, you know, you capture the essence of that, maybe the impression of it, but if you try to copy it, that's where you get stuck, you know, and then later when Herbie got to play with the, you know, with the groups with Paul Jackson and Mike Clark, that, you know, actual proof and stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, and I can't play that way. You know, I kind of, it's like, I tried at home. I tried, believe me. But, and there's piano players that can do it because they've gotten so much into, you know, kind of what Herbie did at that thing. But it's also the input. I remember meeting Mike Clark and thinking like, okay, I'll play with Mike Clark. And Mike Clark said, it all had to do with Paul Jackson. You know, he said his stuff clicked in finally when he played with Paul Jackson. So I said, you know, there's the link thing. And that's the thing where you have to understand what that is between every player that you play with. Yeah. And if you have a pretty good understanding of that, then you don't have to just go through your stuff, you know, like I said, the stuff that you practiced and whatever. And that really, that's what, you know, always has been my philosophy of being able to play with different people. It's like, what are they bringing to it? And do we have some history? What can I bring to this situation that's a little different? Yeah. And then, you know, some people say, well, what's his identity or whatever? I don't know. You know, it's just like whatever it's going to be. So it's a far-ranging. I don't know what question you asked me.
No. Just like it's like you answered it. Like, you know, but that's
the early influences. Wayne Shorter, Joe Henderson, like all that stuff. Horace Silver from the '60s, you know, all this stuff. Eddie Harris. Oh my goodness.
Oh man, yeah.
Eddie Harris, the In Sound, Mean Greens. All that. That's still one of my favorite records in the car. When I hear him play those interval sequences, and his time feel with Billy Higgins, holy, you know, it's like, because you could play those intervals.
Oh, sure.
But if you don't have that time feel that Eddie had, and I feel that influenced like Wayne Shorter on those Miles in the Sky. I hear Wayne, you know, playing some intervals. It's like, and they did play Freedom Jazz Dance.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So they had to know the in sound, you know, they had to know that. So there was like, there's that's kind of stuff. And McCoy. Okay, McCoy. Wow. Another one.
Oh, sure.
It's like, what, I mean, to me, it's just incredible how he found his way intuitively. Stuff I'm finding, you know, these cells of notes or whatever you want to call them, and things that one of my students called it McCoy's Legos or something. McCoy has these little things that are used, and he found that stuff intuitively. And the couple times that I've met him, he's been so gracious and wonderful and so accepting, so, you know, so big about that. Yeah. And, you know, so he was a really big influence and still is, because I keep finding like, oh, man. And, you know, it's like the same thing. He's 24, you know, he's been playing the piano for 7 years or something. I don't even know, you know, he's finding all this stuff with Train. Yeah. You know, so those are big influence. Early on in New York, like when I got to New York, I met Chick Corea early on too, which was really nice. And I had a couple lessons with him. And in one lesson, he pointed out like what was on the shelf, like Beethoven sonatas and some Ravel or whatever. And he made the comment like, you know, we could both look at the same pieces and then we could derive different things.
Exactly.
It was like, so all that thing of like, I don't have to imitate Chick. I can look at some of the same stuff. So I made a mental note. Yeah, he's looking at Villalobos. He's looking at Ravel, Debussy, whatever. And I looked at him, and you know, and he suggested going to the library and getting scores, you know, like, and just looking through that. And I was addicted to that for a while. One time at the Lincoln Center Library, I saw Keith Jarrett coming out with some scores. I didn't speak to him, but I said, okay, I think I'm on the right track here, you know.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
What time did you come to New York? What year was that?
I got there in the Army in 1969.
69.
I was with an Army band in Staten Island.
Oh, wow. I mean,
another set of stories.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah. But immediately after New York, you came entered Woody Herman's band, right? Or how was that?
Yeah, right before I got out of the Army, it was like 1972, I got a call from Woody Herman's band. I had no plan. I had no,
oh, wow.
I was gonna go on food stamps or something, you know, and just like, do whatever I had to do. And I was living in Staten Island. I got a call from Woody Herman's band a few days before I got out of the Army. And I said, how do you know about me? I'm in the Army. I can't join you.
How did this happen? I mean,
it was Joe LaBarber was their drummer. And I'd met
really?
Joe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Joe, I met Joe. Joe was in a different Army base in Fort Dix, but I met Joe and played with him a couple times. And then he got out of the Army. Like I said, he was at a different base, so I lost track of him. So they said, well, Joe LaBarber's our drummer. Oh, wow, okay. I'm very happy that we connected, you know, and he remembered it and put his ass on the line for me, because that was always the case, you know. So,
yeah, but you were like 25 or something then, or even younger.
I think so, yeah, about 25.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was really, and I had my short hair from the Army, you know, and everywhere I went, I was so self-conscious, because at that time the hair was really long. And I remember going to Las Vegas, and I had, like, you know, 8 days of beard growth, and, you know, my hair wasn't much longer. So he said, you just got out of the Army, didn't you? Oh, geez. Okay. So, but yeah, so you know, I spent some time, you know, with Woody's band, and, you know, as I've always said about Woody, that was, you know, the understanding about how to be a professional musician, you know, more than I'd ever known, you know, just hitting the next date, and then, you know, it's Woody Herman's band, and there's a lot of people in the audience, and they expect a certain thing, and then that's what you deliver. And Woody at that time, you know, had just turned 60, and I thought, how does he even drive a car? You know, how does he get air through the horn? You know, and but, you know, his professionalism and just his ear for what that band stood for. Was amazing. And then later on, the whole connection with Stravinsky is amazing to me. And I read books about it. And he lived near Stravinsky, and they actually became friends.
Really?
So,
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. He drove, because I guess Stravinsky didn't drive, and Woody drove him to certain places, and they made the rehearsals and whatever.
Really?
And so. And Woody was riding high in those days, because he had the hit records like Laura and some other things. So it was a big deal. So when I read these things, I said, okay, I'm part of that in some way. You know, it's like,
yeah, definitely.
So there's these strange things that connect over time.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you mentioned that Chet. I wanted to ask you, you know, we talked about leaving space in music, and he was the master of that. And you know, that record, Once Upon, what is it, in the summertime or something?
Once Upon a Summertime,
yeah. With Ron and Mel Lewis, and, you know, that's such a beautiful record. And how did your story with Chet begin? Like, how did he find out about you? And how was, like, the first gig with Chet, and, you know, this learning experience?
Interesting, yeah, it was very much a learning experience. I'd gotten off the road with Woody, and I was actually doing a little woodwind repair. I'd learned that craft in the Army. Yeah, I wasn't very good, but this guy hired me to do school clarinets, you know, the guy that I apprenticed with in New York City, through the Army in a way. That's another long story. But so I was doing that and making some freelance gigs and whatever, and just trying to make my way in New York. And one of the fortunate gigs that I did was with a saxophonist named Turk Morrow at the Half Note in New York. And we were playing one night, and Chet Baker and Phil Urso arrived they were going to start the next week. And, you know, once again, like, I had no plan. I mean, you know, I was going to work with Turk that week and then whatever, but Chet came in, I think he sat in, and then he hired the rhythm section for his gig starting at the Half Note the following week.
That's amazing.
And so, and the owners of the Half Note were very nice to me. They were really good fans of Woody and whatever. So, you know, I just felt very supported by that. But I was, thank goodness for Phil Urso, the saxophone player, who had written charts for Chet and who knew kind of what Chet wanted in certain kind of places, you know. And so Phil would alert me to like certain things, like Chet just wants this here, you know. And so, okay, good. So that was the way I started with Chet, and I hung in there. He changed the rhythm section around for a while. My go-to guys then were Michael Moore, bass player, great bass player, and Jimmy Madison, great drummer. And so I don't think that was ever recorded, but that was a rhythm section that Chet had for a few gigs, maybe at the half note and some other things that I felt was really, really happening, at that time. But it was a learning experience for me because, I'd known Chet from records, as I knew a lot of people from records, but, dealing with, he was dealing with, teeth problems mainly.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the times, he was at the, he hadn't found the correct adhesive for his teeth.
Yeah.
So he was going through some, he'd say, I need the stuff, like, it would be like the stuff to put his teeth in, and so, so that was, hearing him, fluff a phrase because I knew it was the teeth, and then sing the end of the phrase or something, just all about the music all the time. And that was the thing. Since at that point I was not involved in any kind of drug thing or whatever, because he viewed it as his medicine. So if he did his medical thing that day, it was good. If he didn't do his medical thing, there could be adventures. So, but I was involved in the music, and the music he always really respected. It was held at a very high level. And so I was very glad that I was able to go back in 1987 or whatever it was and have another shot at playing with him.
How was that like? How was the feel for you? I mean, after
it was in some ways like it never, didn't have a gap in it. In other ways, I felt much more prepared. And I think Chet, Chet had respect for me and whatever, knew that I would bring something to it. And he also told me, so you're going to really like these Dutch guys, Hein van de Geijn and John, I'll get it. Sorry, John. Whoa, okay. That's a senior moment there. So anyway, but he said, you're going to like these guys. And so, and I did, so we got a chance to really, be a group again, that concept of being a group, which Chet, he did keep guys together, but a lot of times it would be, a similar thing to Lee Konitz, who didn't have much of that concept before I kept telling me, we got to have a band, because that was my whole thing is, having a band and then being able to get a repertoire or get something where you have this musical camaraderie.
Yeah, exactly.
That exists. And Lee particularly, and sometimes Chet, and Chet was never thrilled with it, just going around and doing the single, because he liked to have things certain ways, and sometimes if guys weren't giving to it, Chet would be like, it's not right. It's like when the guy quits music, but Lee, as a contrast to that, really liked the idea of different people every day, sometimes. But then I said, there's another thing that's going on where we could develop these things a little more. And so that's kind of, I was able to play with both those guys during that same period. So, and that had to do with this club called Strikers on 86th Street, which my electric piano, my Fender Rhodes, which was in bad shape, but it had a residency there. So that was my piano. And so I kind of worked with Lee, worked with Chet, worked with a man named Don Elliott and some other people that played there. And then Lee started to develop his 9-piece group.
During
there too. But that was because like Olivia, the owner of Strikers, she didn't care if you had a solo or, you know, a big band. It was the same money.
Oh, man.
So we have the 9-piece. You know, I'd look forward to the trio gigs with Lee because I said, okay, at least, you know, I can
some money.
Yeah, with the Narnet gigs. You know, so.
But you played. There's like a beautiful recording of a concert you did with Lee from 1983 in Bremen, in Germany. A duo you guys did.
Oh yeah, you've heard that? Yeah.
Man, you play a Star Eyes, which is like incredible. And what is this thing called Love? And it's so beautiful to hear you play in duo with him because it's so intimate. And like, how was that like for you playing duo with Lee? I mean,
well, it was you know, another education, you know, and you know, we would have these rehearsals where I never formally studied with Lee, but the rehearsals were like lessons, you know, where we played very excruciatingly slowly.
Oh man!
And he would just, you know, say like, "Oh well, we gotta improvise," you know, like, and so you gotta let this note make you think of the next note or the next space, you know, whatever. It can't just be your automatic stuff.
Yeah.
And I've told this story too because he accused me of just using my chops one time. I said, I don't. There's like 100 guys in New York with more chops than me. You know, come on, you know. But he just said like you should be able to play with one finger, and he went over like, and Chet would do the same thing, play melodies with one finger, you know, da da da, you know, and then showed me like on all the things you are, da 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 da. You know, you could do that, you know. So if you just had one finger, you should be able to make music, which is very helpful for me when I get nervous and whatever. Yeah, I guess I can play, but I don't have to do all this stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that was Lee's thing. It's like, you know, being in that moment and you know, knowing how to, he had his gradations from 1 to 10 or something as levels of improvisation. And I once asked him about, well, is there a level 0 where you don't quite know whatever? And he was like, maybe there's a, you know, there's one is where you play the melody the way you know it, you know, whatever. So what's the, you know, 0 is like where you maybe, I don't know, do less, you know.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the duo stuff, I had a very nice situation with Lee, and his wife Tavia at that time was managing, and we were all just good friends. And Tavia she understood, you know, like I wanted to have this group idea for Lee, but even as a duo, I wanted to have it figure as a group somehow. You know, that it's like we have a repertoire, and that record, when I heard it, is it now an actual formal record? I don't know, because I just heard it as a.
I just heard it on YouTube. Like it's a whole thing. It's on YouTube. Yeah, like
exactly.
Kind of bootleg type.
I think Sunnyside might put it out. They're
beautiful.
Bremen, which would be great. You know,
beautiful.
Because he said that the sound from Bremen, you know, with all the bits and whatever, is a much better sound. So Francois Zalikin said that, you know, he was interested in putting it out. But that night was amazing. But it was one of many nights that we did duos, and then sometimes we would pick up a bass and drums. You know, along the way, we did a tour. We did another duo record in Scotland. She's the Wildest Springtime, which is another thing where Lee, you know, some of his originals, some Chick Corea tune that Chick wrote for him. And so, you know, trying to develop a repertoire in the way we played things that was maybe different. And so we would take that duo, what we were working on, and that be the kernel of like what would happen in hopefully a quartet situation, you know?
Yeah.
So somebody just told me about George Schuller, Gunther Schuller's son, he's in charge of the Lee Konitz, like, and you know, he said 1,200 cassette tapes and about 400 reel-to-reels or something.
Are you kidding me? Oh, man.
Yeah. So he reminded me of a gig in Africa that Lee, that he was just listening to. A gig in Africa had, check this person all out. It was Lee and myself, John Eckert, a great trumpet player who played on you know, with Lee in the nonet, and Buster Williams on bass and Beaver Harris on drums.
Really? Oh man, yeah. Seriously? Wow.
It's pretty out and pretty. So I just said that, and we did a gig and at actually a Club Med in Dakar, and there's another concert which we're trying to. I have to go through some Lee Konitz, a couple files I have and see if I have any anything that documents where this other gig might have been in Dakar. I can't remember actually playing a concert, but we did do these gigs at Club Med, and so you know, he had different left to his own devices with rhythm sections. It could go kind of anywhere, but it was always fun because we had what we had developed as something that you know we could relate. You know, everyone hopefully could relate to.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear that.
Nice tours of England and Scotland with a bass player Dave Green and drummer Trevor Tompkin, which I wish some of that had been recorded. Maybe some of it is. And then some really nice gigs with Al Harewood on drums. Some of those are recorded, like with Rufus Reed. There was also a bass player named a good friend of Al's that Lyle Atkinson, and then also Mark Johnson did some of those gigs with
that record with Adam Nussbaum and Mark. I love that one, man. That's so beautiful.
And that was supposed to be Kenny Washington. Kenny Washington did the rehearsals, didn't make the gig, and they called Adam Nussbaum at the last minute. So it was crazy.
Kenny was doing a monster.
It was really fun. And I just remembered it's John Engels from Holland, the drummer with Chet. So sorry, John.
No, I wanted to ask, speaking of Lee and Chet, like how were these guys as band leaders, like according to your experience? Like, I mean, probably two different creatures, right?
I mean, I think like in my case, I think they were able to trust me, like I said, to get a rhythm section, like both of them. You know, and like I said, sometimes Lee would have an idea about, you know, maybe somebody, and we'd try it. But a lot of times, I probably there's probably stuff with Michael Moore and Jimmy Madison with Lee, because that was at that time. I just said, you know, those are the guys I feel comfortable with. So, but as a they let me be. I wouldn't call myself a musical director, but I'd say like a rhythm section, you know, kind of like director. I remember having the numbers of every bass player in town. You know, I could call Richard Davis and he could say no, and I could call Ron Carter and he could say no, you know, whatever, you know, but I had a list of everyone, because that was the main thing. The bass players seemed to be the ones that would get the next gig, you know. But that was like the band leading stuff. Chet would always want to, you know, bring a band. But at the early days when he did the CTI records, they had the in-house rhythm section, Bob James and those guys. And Chet would, you know, he apologized and said, "Look, this is what I have to do." You know, Chet was always that way. Where, you know, people said, "How did you do all those gigs that they heard they didn't pay?" I said, "Well," Chet would say, like, "this gig doesn't pay very well, but we got something down the line. We got a concert coming up." Okay. You know, so there was no, it was like, you know, in his case, he had to do the next gig because that's all he did. In my case, I was trying to teach and whatever, but I didn't say no to people like Chet Baker or Lee Konitz. So
I wanted to ask you also this, because I noticed, you know, you wrote, there's one tune on that New York album with Lee that I mentioned you wrote, and Tidal Breeze, you know, with Chet.
Right.
And how did that happen? You started writing also for the records that these guys made, like as band leaders. Like how did Tidal Breeze happen? I mean,
Tidal Breeze is like a early original. When I saw the Atlantic Ocean for the first time, I actually wrote Tidal Breeze.
Okay.
And it actually was something I wrote away from the piano, and it kind of worked. And I should have been encouraged to keep doing that, but I keep using the piano. But Stravinsky did use the piano too. So, but Title Blues is pretty early on, and it was meant to be like, at that time, Speak No Evil and that sort of.
Yeah, it's kind of Wayne Shorter. Yeah.
Wayne Shorter kind of tune, like from that record, from that era. But it kind of, it can morph into different things. It's been big band versions, and I sometimes play a real kind of almost stride style. For me, it's like I can play it any way I want. It's my tune. I don't, I can disrespect it if I'd like. But so I was always writing tunes, not really specifically for anyone. Like I think the tune you're referring to is Candlelight Shadows.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Which is a thing I wrote, I don't know, just has that sort of thing that I like. I don't know. I like to get an environment of harmony, and it's maybe out of Ravel and whatever. But so Lee started, and I was always pushing my tunes. Like, what can I tell you? If Lee can record my tune. And the only tune I really wrote for Lee was a tune called Staircase, which is on one of the records, which is a Giant Steps tune, but has it has like some intervals. So that I actually wrote for Lee because I said, okay, he wanted to play Giant Steps, but he didn't want to play the half notes. He wanted to have eighth notes so he could play it slower. So I said, okay, I got the exact. I'm going to do a Tristano-ish sort of, because like Lee was playing fourths and all that kind of thing. And I said, Lee's going to love this. So it took me years before he finally recorded it. He recorded it on I think, Italian label, Soul Note.
Yeah.
So we finally got him playing Giant Steps that way, in the tempo, in the kind of slower tempo that he liked. And so other than that, it was just me, when I got the chance to play with Chet and Ben Riley and John Burr on some records, I took some of my tunes along.
Oh, okay.
As John Burr did too, because we all, wanted to get Chet to record our tunes. So that was always a thing of just, keeping bringing my little notebook along, right, with all my stuff and saying, okay, and then writing it out in B flat for whatever, or E flat, so that it wouldn't be like they'd have to transpose it, so I knew at least that much, trying to get it in their key. Yeah. So that was the thing as a writer, as a composer, it's just like wonderful to get people to play your music,
Yeah.
And so really rewarding. And Lee got to enjoy playing Candlelight Shadows, I think, And I think he enjoyed playing Staircase too. I forget if we did any. I think we did something else of mine. I'm not sure, but he was. He let me on that recording in Bremen do a solo version of Mirth Song, which is one of my earliest tunes, really from the 60s. And I was really involved in the piano strings and all that. And when I heard it, I said, wow, I had some chops doing that then, because, I was really like looking inside the piano and looking wherever and strumming and doing this. Yeah. And also back and forth, because that's the other thing. When you do some of that,
tricky.
You're a little bit, oh geez, I didn't make the time coming back to the piano. But I was really gratified that Lee had let me do that, because I don't remember times where he would actually let me have the stage like that. So I think it was an amazingly good piano. That was one of the things, because Bremen
sounds really good. I mean,
that was one of the many famous Keith Jarrett concerts was at Bremen.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm pretty sure it was that exact piano.
Oh wow. So, okay, that's beautiful. But speaking of all this stuff that you did in the 70s, how did then this trigger for you to become a band leader happen? I mean, I love coincidence that you did, because I love Tom Harrell and Frank Tiberi, man, he's like one of the most underrated tenors ever. And the rhythm section, Rufus and Joe, like incredible band you put together. How did those moments happen for you, like getting your own bands together?
Well, it started, back in Ohio when I started, I had trios, which were you know, so I always had kind of my own bands in a way. You know, sometimes they wouldn't last very long, but when Gregory Herbert left Woody Herman, and I was living with Joe LaBarbera in New York, that was after, you know, and, you know, both Joe and I had left Woody, and our ideal was like, you know, to have a band with Gregory. And I think Chip Jackson was the guy that was our go-to guy at that point for bass.
Wow. Yeah.
And then Chip and Joe eventually, I think, ended up going with Chuck Mangione. But we had this idea of a group, and I have some tapes of you know, Gregory with that quartet that are really nice, you know, and Gregory's just like an amazing player that never got his due.
Yeah, I agree.
In any way. But, you know, he was inspiring to a lot of people, and also a very, very insanely funny guy. And so we had a lot of good times with that group. But then, of course, everyone's freelancing, you know, everyone's doing the next gig. And then when Joe, I think Joe got married, Joe LaBarbera. I forget, you know, these bands kind of go different ways. And then they ended up going to Rochester with Chuck Mangione. So then it's like, Gregory, you know, we were both with Thad Jones for a while. But then Gregory went with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and then another little tragic episode happened. So, and I was just playing, you know, if I was really busy with other things, then I wasn't thinking much about having a band. But there were, you know, the writing projects I was doing. I was writing with different things. I was writing like pop stuff. I was writing country and Western stuff.
Oh, really?
I was writing theater stuff. I was really collaborating with people, with vocalists and with writers.
Yeah,
Some
so
of
you
which
went
I thought was
with Liza
very
Minnelli
good.
also, right? Also, you
What's that?
You went like with Liza Minnelli to Brazil or something like that.
That was a call. Like I keep explaining I was probably the 12th call because I wasn't in that circle. Okay. I'm sure they called everyone they knew, but the real guys in New York were doing record dates, didn't want to leave. But I got to go to Brazil with Liza.
Wow.
And the reason I got the gig was my friend Lawrence Feldman, who was a saxophone player, was on Liza's band, and he recommended me. So, you know, when a saxophone player recommends a piano player for a major gig, they've gone through everybody in the rhythm sections that they know. And they finally say, hey, do you know anyone that can maybe do? So I got a chance to make a kind of an audition, which I really didn't. I'd never do well at auditions, but with Liza, it was like these show tunes, you know. And so, but then I played like an old tune with Liza, and she was comfortable enough that I think the musical director said, look, we're going to Brazil next week. You have a passport? I said, yeah. And he's like, can you get this music together by a real rehearsal on Sunday or something? I said, yeah, give me the music. I'll do the best I can. So I got to travel to Brazil. And that was another thing where, you know, it came my way. And I remember having an interview because some of my records had just come out. This is 1979, I believe.
Yeah.
And I remember going to Canada, and there was a disc jockey. I was playing Canada with Liza, and I called some disc jockey that had been playing my stuff. And I said, hey, I'm up here. He said, oh, you up here with your group? And he said, no, I'm up here with Liza Minnelli. And I heard that, I just could feel the thing on the other end. Oh, you're in show business or what, you know, like whatever. So there was kind of a thing. No, I'm just doing the next gig. And after a few months, they, when some real TV gigs came up or whatever, they got somebody else from New York, you know. So I got let go, whatever. But it was fun for me because it was just an idea of like what that sort of freelance world could lead to. I also did a television show in the early 80s called Another World, which is another Mike Renzi, who's a great piano player who just passed away. Mike Renzi played with every vocalist. He was just an amazing, amazing piano player. Mike Renzi got so busy that he told the TV people on this soap opera that he couldn't do the rehearsals, which they really want to do, you know, the rehearsals. And it's just a cocktail piano thing in a lounge. But he said he could do the gig, but not the rehearsals. I think he was working with Lena Horne, you know, Mel Torme, whatever he was doing. He was just busy. So I got to do like this TV show for 15 episodes, you know, now and then, whatever, and, you know, playing cocktail piano in the background, and then always playing Tidal Breeze. Get me some credits for it.
That's something, yeah, okay.
So, but, you know, those things came up and they were kind of sideline things, you know, and when that was happening, and when the money is good that's coming in that way, I'm not much thinking about other things.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But then, okay, that ends, and okay, you pay the rent for a couple of months. It's like, okay, well, now, you know, I'm back on the scene. And then there's rumors, you know, that I remember one rumor I went to that I had married some rich actress and was living in Jersey and doing TV, you know, like, you know, so you go to these things, and it's like, no, you know, so that freelance thing, you got to get, I got to go to Bradley's tonight. I think at one point I realized I'd have to have 60 contacts a week. I'd have to shake like 30 hands or just say, yeah, whatever, you know, have a drink, you know, whatever.
That you're there.
60 people a week. Or a phone call, like, you know, like in those days, you know, you could call, you didn't have to make an appointment for a phone call. You just call somebody and say, how you doing, you know? Yeah. And so, but, you know, to get back in the scene. And then, you know, the other contacts, like the songwriters and whatever, those kind of things start to come into play. So by the middle part of the 80s, I was working with Jerry Mulligan a lot by then, still working with Lee. And, but, you know, I was doing more teaching. I actually took like some teaching gig at Manhattan School of Music. So I had certain kind of, you know, steady income and the teaching
stability.
Thing, but,
yeah.
But I was also, you know, it's like, okay, this is time. You know, I really got to think more about, you know, maybe my own stuff. And the time with Jerry Mulligan was very instructive in this way too, because Jerry was very much at that time in his own music, presentation of the quartet, presentation of the big band. And at that time, it's like, oh, you know, okay, yeah, Jerry's being like, he overzealous about it. But then looking back on it, it was really like, yeah, okay, I can do this, start to think about this too. I want to present my own music. I want, you know, I don't have big ambitions with a big band or whatever. Quartet is about it. Duo is pretty good, you know, trio, quartet, maybe quintet, Oates and Perry, you know, I can, but I don't have many ambitions other than, you know, quintet or, no, I did have a sextet for.
Oh, wow, really? Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, Charles Pillow, Rich.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Jenkins, yeah, Rich, Clay Jenkins. I did it at Eastman, which I was pretty happy about. I had Charles playing bass clarinet. There's some nice tapes of that, some recordings of it, yeah. But, you know, once again, doing my music in a certain way. And the thing is, you know, you know, it is, you know, not just, you know, putting a tune together, you know, just writing a line on a blues or something, you know, it's like, it does require, and for me, it requires more rehearsing. I mean, I must say with Hirshfield and Jay Anderson and those guys, they don't require much. And I wrote the tune, and I'm the one like, oh, can we do this again, guys? And they had it right the first time, you know. So, but that's the level is very high. But, you know, wanting to make a presentation, wanting to have it as good as it can be, rather than just haphazard. And, you know, I mean, I love that. I wish I could be more happy-go-lucky jazz, you know, just like drink and carouse. And, you know, I read about the swing era all the time, and I read about, you know, the old guys and Earl Hines and people I love. But Earl Hines knew about presentation, you know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I learned out of Jerry Mulligan too, is that, you know, to present your own music is very important. You know, if you want to have a career.
Yeah, I mean, you've been like extremely prolific, like since, you know, 1990 something. It's like incredible amount of music, you know, which is beautiful.
Well, it's like it's been, you know, when I went to, I moved to Rochester in 1998 to do the Eastman School of Music, and that kind of, you know, took me off the New York scene and allowed me to be selective and whatever in what I do.
Yeah.
Although I must say my phone wasn't ringing. Gary Versace is the guy that replaced me now at Eastman after I retired. And Gary's so busy. His phone's still ringing. And I don't know how he goes between Rochester and New York and doing whatever, but that's his thing. For me, when I got to Rochester, I had a kid that was just starting school, you know, and I just said, yeah, I'm kind of ready to not do this New York scene.
Yeah.
And then I've been retired now for 4 years, which means I just don't report in every day. But as I've mentioned to people, my own music education is continuing.
Yeah,
but it's
beautiful.
only me that I have to worry about. I don't have to worry about some nervous 20-year-old whose parents are coming in from wherever and they want to do a recital and they got to complete all their academics, you know. So it's just about me. And if like, oh, I learned a new Stravinsky thing, or like, oh yes, wow, I never thought of that thing that McCoy did there, you know. But it's like, got to do it a different way. I can't do it like him, because then people will figure me out.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful that you have that. I also listened to Playdate, you know, the duo with Kirk Knufke, and man, that came as a surprise. I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't. Yeah, that was fun.
So beautiful.
We talked about doing another one, maybe with Jay Anderson and Kirk.
Oh man.
So Kirk likes what I do inside the piano, you know, and
did you guys play together before already, or?
No, we just met that day.
Oh wow, amazing!
And I brought along the Duke Jordan tunes as a backup, you know. I just said,
oh wow,
because Steeplechase owns the publishing on the Duke Jordan tunes, so that's it. It's a no-brainer for him, you know. So, but it worked out with both things, because you know Kirk likes to play kind of the way he plays inside, which is his own way of doing it. But you know, he has some real like sort of swing era roots or something. There's a way that he hears, you know, that's you know, and playing the cornet is another kind of sound. You know, it's definitely his own sound. So it'd be very interesting to try a slightly different context. So he suggested, like, if we get another shot, to try it with Jay Anderson. I said I could hear that, you know.
Oh man, well, yeah, that'll be beautiful. Yeah, I love when you do the free stuff. I mean, you know, the improvised moments are amazing. Like, it's really beautiful.
Well, yeah, you know, it's like I had a long interview with somebody or another, and you know, was asking me about, you know, the fact that I'm not known as a free player. I said back in the 60s, I wanted to do all of that. You know, and then the fact that I knew a lot of tunes, you know, like the thing helped me with Chet Baker and Thad, you know, people like that they're comfortable in a repertoire, and the fact that I could either know a tune or fake a tune pretty well and get it by the third time through. So that's like all this sort of training that went into it. But the only thing is I said on Kirk's record is I don't have a long attention span for free stuff. I can go 3 or 4 minutes, and then I lose interest in what I'm playing. You know, like in a certain way. It's like, or I might go into something that's like, oh, that's not, you know, not really the thing. So when I try those things, generally I'm better at short pieces, you know, and then I can start again with some different idea. Yeah. So they're more like vignettes.
Yeah.
But I've heard guys that can just, I've heard it both ways, where guys can stretch it out, and it's like, okay, I think I got the idea about 10 minutes ago. Or guys that can really hold my interest, you know, when something else happens, you know, and it's you know, it's rewarding. There's people, I know people in the Rochester area just love free music. That's their preferred thing. And, you know, and they've heard me play a little bit of that. And so, why don't you do more of that? Because I'm not, I don't satisfy myself. I'm more happy playing my own repertoire and then stretching that out, and then maybe arriving at some little free thing for a while. But when it's done, it's done. You know, it's just like I can't like, I'm not that prolific in the improvising thing of just inventing something new all the time. You know? I have to have some basis for it, you know.
Yeah, some ground, yeah, construction, yeah.
And with that, I can expand on that if I'm in good shape, you know.
Yeah, beautiful, cool, Harold. I will not take more of your time. So,
well, this is fun. I really appreciate it, and it's always good to talk.
Yeah, so nice to hear you share some of the stories and insights.
I really appreciate that you know these things that I've done, and you're in Slovenia.
Yeah, and, isn't that beautiful? I love that.
It's really amazing, and to have that connection, and to know, you know, there might be other people, you know, in other parts of the world. You know, it's very encouraging. So
yeah,
very happy to have this opportunity on a Sunday. You know?
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for taking the time, and you know.
Dr. Jazz.